Very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice on a Monday night. Wish it was a happier sort of weekend, but unfortunately it wasn't. We're going to talk about the game against Brighton. The capitulation against Brighton a bit later on. Going to look at the FA Cup and the heroics that we had there. And of course, all the latest update news, the under-21s and the women's team, and of course, player updates as well. Now, I know the weekend has been pretty poor, and we've got an awful lot to chew over in that. So bear with me. That will come up later on. But let's see who's in the chat first and say hello to you all and see who's here tonight. Let's scroll all the way up. I've already replied to this comment. Good evening to you, Learn to Dig. Before you hype up the bigots, can you name a more productive signing than Antonio? I think Learn to Dig thinks that I have it in for black players, which is rather stupid. And as I answered him, there's no hyping of anybody, whether they're black or white, and Antonio will get as much criticism or praise as I think is necessary. Good evening to you, usual. Let's be upbeat. Let me just make my voice a little bit upbeat. Otherwise, you're going to hear me drone for the next 2 hours, and I'll try not to. Good evening, usual. If anyone here suffers from depression, keep away. There you go. You've made me laugh already. Keep her away from supporting West Ham, as it really won't help your mental health. I know that. Good evening to you, Si. True, I've suffered mental health all my life. I've supported West Ham all my life. Coincidence. There you go. You've cheered me up already. Good evening, Matt. My God, this crap ain't heartbreaking anymore. It's soul-destroying. Players, backroom staff, most fans want Moyes gone, but still got the job. Villa, Southampton, Newcastle, next lose to them, lose to Villa, and I think it might be curtains. Not for Moyes, but for West Ham, per se. Who else have we got? Good evening to you, Stuart. Oh, I'm going to answer that, Matt. You will see rumours ongoing. I've mentioned this quite a few times, so I'm happy to sort of cover this now. Daniel Kretinsky is an investor. He's bought West Ham United as an investment, and you'll continue to hear stories about Kretinsky wanting to buy West Ham out. I actually don't think he does. He's kind of been interviewed himself over the past couple of years or whatever, however long he's been involved in West Ham, year and a half, etc. And he's been asked outright, if he has to sell, if he has to buy West Ham, i.e. to be the major shareholder, he'll have to sell Sparta Prague. He's not interested in doing that. He sees West Ham as an investment, and trust me, it's making him a decent return in his investment. So no, I don't think he'll be buying West Ham out. But anything could happen. It's possible, quite possible, that he may decide to sell up at Sparta Prague and buy West Ham. I can't see it. He will continue investing while it suits him and while he makes money. Good evening to you, Sharky. Thanks all for being here. Not marooned in the bottom three. Well, isn't that a bonus? Keep faith with the board, and Moyes will beat Sullivan. Moyes will beat Villa on Sunday. Kalispera to you, Keith. I hope you're well. What can I say about the game other than Malaka? Yeah, if anyone understands Greek, you'll know what that means. Good evening, Steve. I hope you're well. Same here, usual. It's okay not to be okay unless caused by corporate devils I work for. Moyes out, Nolan and Noble to the end of the season. Forget Noble, but I just wonder if things are going to cost so much money to replace Moyes with a top-class manager, whoever that top-class manager may be. I just wonder if Kevin Nolan might be the guy to take over. Good evening, Bedfordshire. I hope you're well. Matt, still got Arsenal, Liverpool and United. Got to ruck out the next few features because this crap can't continue. Well, we're at the stage now, aren't we, where even if we got a draw in every game, in every remaining game, it won't be enough. I think it'll take us to 36 points. So we're past that stage now. So we've got to continue. We've got to try and find 5 wins somewhere. We have absolutely no choice. Even if we stuck with Moyes' tactics of, making sure that we keep ourselves tight in defence. We've conceded 7 goals in the last 2 games. But even if we went with Moyes' defensive tactics, that would mean having to draw every game and it still wouldn't be enough. Oh, well. Anyway, who else have we got in the chat? Good evening to you, Martin. I hope you're well. Looking forward to my balanced views. I'm going to really try. I swear on my life, I'm going to really try. I don't know how balanced they'll be tonight. Good evening, Ralph. Get your head out the sand. Positive about what? Going down because that's where Moyes and Nolan is taking us. There you go. That's brought us back down to earth. Good evening, Graham. How are you? I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Jerry. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Howard. How are you? Good evening, Ed. I hope you're well. Good evening, Debbie and Mark. The only thing to lift my mood after that shite result against Brighton was Liverpool giving United a thrashing. Isn't that odd, eh? And did I hear Ten Hag say that West Ham United game took it out of them? Fucking hell. God, oh, God, wow. Good evening, Ed. How are you? I hope you're well. Yes. How is he still here? I think he's super glued himself to the West Ham manager's chair, I think. Good evening, Paul. How are you? Yes, he is put Nolan in charge. I'm guessing, but who knows? I'll talk about that later because there seemed to be something odd going on, apart from the thrashing, of course. Good evening, WHU. I hope you're well, mate. Daniela, how are you? Yes, everyone, let's keep it balanced. Yes, we're all unhappy. We are, but not the end of the world. And I still think we can get us out of this. I hope. Good evening to you, Scott. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Epic. How are you? I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Chris. How's he not been sacked after that? Well, I've got it. I know I've said this before, but I think Villa has got to be the last chance saloon. If we do not win on Sunday, not only will it be toxic, but I think that will be the last straw. It has to be. Good evening to you, Steve. I hope you're well, mate. Good evening to you, Ryan. How are you? My God, it wasn't it? Going all the way down there, mind you, it's not far, but going down there and seeing that before your eyes. My goodness. Good evening, Steve. I hope you're well. I know, mate. Thank you for your message. But I hope it goes well for you, mate. And hang in there. Good evening to you, Raynham. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Carrick ain't going to leave Middlesbrough. Why would he? He'll probably, I don't know. I've not been following it. I know they're doing extremely well. I don't know where they are in the league, but I can't see Carrick coming to West Ham. Certainly not. Let's see what happens at the end of the season. If he gets Middlesbrough promoted, why would he want to come to West Ham, straight away? Give him a year under Middlesbrough to see how he fares, and then maybe go for him. Good prospect. Graham, just cheer you up. It's still snowing. How thick is the snow now, mate? Good evening to you, Sean. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Zoomer's cats. I hope you're well. I love the photo. That cat looks startled. Was that cat watching the football match on Saturday? What the happened there? Good evening, Andy. I think Moyes must be one of the Hellraiser demons because he's tearing the soul out of this team and our club. Yeah. Good evening, Black Country. How are you? It's all rotten from top to bottom. What can I say? You know what I'm like. I really always try. I always try to put a sort of, as someone said, I hope to hear your balanced view. And I always try. I really try. But I tell you what, I did leave the ground. My mates left me there. They were, I'm not watching this shit anymore. Off they stormed at 3-0. And I'm not, I'll stay a little bit. Not that we were going to get back into the game, but I'll stay a bit longer. And I stayed longer and saw the fourth goal go in. Steve, heard Sean Whetstone say only Cranberry last night that Sullivan will not change manager because it's too costly. Yeah, I've heard that. If that is true, that is a bit of a weird statement. But I think if we lose on Sunday, a change will have to be made. The Cornet deception. Does the West Ham store sell claret and blue straight jackets? I have a dribble bid. Good evening, Gary. How are you? I hope you're well. Blue Rondo a la Turk. Yeah, that's a blast from the past, Gary. How are you, mate? Mr. McLaren, how are you? I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Yeah, you went home. You turned back because of the train problems. You did the right thing on Saturday. Usual. Still, is there any truth in the room about Antonio falling out with Moyes before the Brighton game? I do not know. I know they've fallen out, and you could tell that by the comments that Antonio was making during the transfer window. There's no love lost there. It's absolutely assured. Antonio thinks he should be a starter for every single game, and Moyes doesn't. I guess, there's one thing that probably Moyes has got right, is probably knowing that Antonio's not a Premier League footballer anymore. Especially, I'm going to talk about the Man United game as well, and all the chances we had there to put that to bed. So it's quite possible. But I promise I haven't heard anything myself. Steve, Danny Magnificent, can't stand the bin dippers myself. Let's see Nolan managing everybody doing the chicken dance. We'd be doing that all over the stadium if he took over and managed and kept us up. Zuma's cat. Big Sam on TalkSport earlier, sniffing around, make out he can go and take a good run and jump. Would you prefer him at this stage? Absolutely not. I prefer my cat to manage West Ham over him. Steve, 13 games to go. Liverpool, Arsenal, United. What could go wrong? To come at home, and City, Brentford, can't see any win there. I believe the points total will be as high as 40. I don't actually think the points total will be as high as 40, but that's the landmark we need to get to, isn't it? Just to be sure. Kent, good evening to you. David Moyes should have gone after the Brighton game. We were awful. The fans should get their ticket money back. Hey, lost the away fans Saturday, and once that happens, you're finished. Absolutely agree. It was, the away fans made their feelings very, very clear on Saturday, didn't they, mate? David N, good evening to you. What does Moyes have to do to lose his job? Get us relegated, I guess. The board forgot about the scouting system for players. Now they forgot about scouting the potential managers. Yeah, it's odd. I mean, even I can't say any more about Moyes, for him to keep his job. I think Moyes is Sullivan in disguise. Howard, things have not got that bad, Zuma's cat. John, good evening to you. Nolan chucked his iPad on the floor and Deck was shaking his head and checked his drink bottle away. Both of them. I saw him throw something on the floor. I thought it was a bottle. But there you go. He threw his iPad. He threw the fucking iPad. Jesus, that's expensive. That's an expensive thing to throw away. Anyway, both of them did this after talking on Moyes' side. I thought so. I thought I was imagining it. But that is what happened, because I saw them talking and then I saw Nolan. And I wasn't sure if Nolan had thrown the iPad on the floor after they scored a goal or not. So thank you for clarifying. I thought I wasn't mad. Black Country, third. See, he'll see that through. He'll see that through to the end of this season. If they gets them up, I think he'll spend the season there with them. Why not? You would, wouldn't you? You would want to do that. Vincent Company will do that with Burnley as well. See what happens with those teams. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you something. If we do survive the Premier League this season, there aren't going to be three shit worse teams than us if we don't pull our socks up, because you look at the likes of Burnley and the way that Middlesbrough are being managed, etc. You're gonna struggle, aren't you? Unless you start off really well. Anything other than win against Larnaca, then he gets the Spanish Archer. I think even if we didn't win against Larnaca, it's all down on Sunday. I really do think that. Heard Nolan threw his iPad down and stormed off. Moyes was giving Rice advice. Rice shook his head and walked off. There you go. So that's what I saw something happening. I wasn't sure. Maybe Moyes at 3-0 or whenever that was turned around and said, Declan, let's defend a bit more because we don't want to concede another goal, lad. Man don't give. Did you hear what Moyes did when the fans started singing against him? Yes, I'm going to talk about that later on. I was there, mate. Saw it happening. Teams around us are struggling. Most people have no clue about West Ham. Teams around us are struggling as bad as we are. That's the problem. We're not struggling any less than them. If we win a game, a lot of the teams around us win a game. If we lose, a lot of teams around us lose. If we draw, and vice versa. So if we were doing even marginally better than the teams around us, I kind of would be going, okay, not great, but that's the unfortunate thing. We're not doing even marginally better. Ian Gravett, Gonzo mentioned parameters and it being the fact that we only want a short-term manager. He won't play a long-term. Well, yes, and I understand. I know this sounds weird, but I kind of actually understand that. I understand why we want a short-term manager, because I think, I think what possibly Sullivan has got in mind is a manager that, he said it, I think, before the World Cup, the managers we want, or something to that effect, are all in employment. So I think he's got someone in mind, or certain managers in mind that he'd like to bring as permanent managers. So I kind of get it, because you don't want to be stuck with a manager. kind of this is what's happened with Moyes. He came in interim, but then he said, I want the job permanently. We kind of went, you've done all right, we'll give it to you permanent. We'll only end up being in the same situation as we're currently in. If we get a manager that isn't kind of right for us, and I'm thinking of the likes of maybe someone like Benitez or someone like that, if it doesn't go well, he hasn't exactly shone with the teams that he's managed in the Premier League since his heyday in Liverpool. He hasn't exactly done, that good at other clubs. So I'm wondering maybe that's why Sullivan is thinking, I don't want someone for the here and, for the here and now, only to end up having to give him another 3-year contract like Moyes. I can only imagine that's probably what's in his head. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I think Sullivan, I'm not trying to give him credit here, but I think Sullivan is probably looking at other managers that are currently in employment and hoping that he might get them in the summer. And he's got his effing fingers crossed, that Moyes doesn't take us down in the meantime. I hope that made sense, Ian. Good evening to you, P-Gads. It's like a bad movie plot. Kretinsky wants to buy the shares of Sullivan, but the price is too high. So he's paying Moyes and the players under the table to be crap. Oh, good theory. Ryan, Sullivan is more bothered about his new bit of comfort than our club. Yeah, he's getting old, and it's probably not as rising as much as it used to. Kent, Borough are third in the table, playing some terrific foot pass and move with a good young side. Carrier's got them playing their eyesight. I'd love him, but I honestly don't think he'd be looking at West Ham going, it's a good proposition right now. It could be that Sullivan wants Carrick next season, maybe, and see what happens with them. If they do go up, I can see Carrick staying there for at least the season, see how it goes, and then maybe. Good evening to you, Cockney. Hi, Stella. No, it's still there. Someone on TalkSport said this: if the season was January to January, would have got relegated on 28 points and now in the Championship. Thank God it's not January to January, but we still haven't got very much points. Good evening to you, Moyes Iris. I warned everyone about Moyes, just as Churchill warned the world about the Führer in the early 30s. Imagine comparing Moyes to the Führer. Good evening to you, Ultra. How are you? Did you see the TalkSport video on West Ham fan owning? I didn't, unfortunately. No, I can't. I didn't have the time. But what if it was interesting? Let me know. Well, clearly it must have been. So I'll try and catch up with that. Good evening, Flameur. How are you? Is Moyes still here? Yes, he is. Who else we got? Kent Carrick has got on Borough. Yeah, got that one. Thank you. Good evening to you, James. How are you? Moyes should have been sacked before the World Cup. Kevin Nolan should take over, as I can't see any worth they waiting coming in. Any worth their weight to come in. Yeah, and this is it. Like I've tried to explain to you, and I'm not sure if I explained it well. And trust me, it wasn't an excuse to say, why Sullivan's not looking for another manager. But I just wonder if Sullivan's got his eye on one or two other managers that are currently in employ, and maybe. Just maybe if we survive this season, Sullivan might approach managers he'd rather have than interim managers who end up staying here for too long, like Benitez, for example. Sharky, pitiful performance on Saturday by West Ham. Evening to you, mate, and I hope you're well. Right, I'll tell you what. Let's stop there for a minute. Let's go into the first bit of the show because it's a quick one, just a quick rundown, and then we'll come back to your comments. Right, let's do a really quick round robin of the women's team and the academies, shall we? So the women's team were left to rue a number of missed chances against Reading at the weekend when they played away at their ground. After half-time, with Amelie Thestrup and Honoka Hayashi couldn't convert golden opportunities. Rotherham went 1-0 up on the 66th minute. Then we had a number of changes, more chances, but on the 85th minute, we went 2-0 down, and then we grabbed a late goal. Next game is against Villa on Sunday at 3 p.m. They're not doing that well. They had a good run, the women's team, and now sort of slipped up a little bit. And an even bigger slip up, you think our thumping was bad. The under-21s were thumped at home against Man City at the weekend. They were beaten 5-1 at Rush Green on Friday evening. to a City side that showed exactly why they're top of their division. Clinical finishing throughout. 2 finishes by Kian Breckin, an Oscar Bob strike, a penalty from Alex Robertson, and an own goal by Freddie Potts. Divine Mbarma added a late consolation for West Ham, but we couldn't make game of it, really. I mean, Man City have got a very, very good under-21 team, and they're proving it. No under-18s at the weekend. Their next game is not until the 11th of March against Norwich. So that's it. A really quick roundup. I told you I'd do it quickly. So let's go back to your chat, and then I'll talk about playing news. David M. Have West Ham taken their foot off the gas knowing they've got a European game? No, mate. I honestly don't think they did. I think that we were completely outshone at the weekend. Like, there was nothing about our game which suggested that we were just going easy because of a European game. And if we did, that would be a very, very stupid thing to do, given how much in trouble we are. It sounds horrible, but they did not try. They definitely didn't seem to try, without a doubt. But like I said, people, thank you for updating me on that. I knew I saw something on the sidelines. Nolan looked angry, and Declan walked away after a conversation with Moyes. He's lost it, hasn't he? I mean, and what I've been like about David Moyes throughout the season. I've tried to, look at it in a positive way, etc. But if even your backroom staff are now beginning to say it ain't right, then what? Let's scroll down. Man don't give. David Moyes should have gone when we lost to Brighton back in August. I don't know about it back then, but certainly before the World Cup started, without a doubt. Good evening to you, Vinay. If Moyes dressed up as Mr. Blobby and started Lanzini in goal, will he still keep his job? How did you know the trick? Ian, hasn't Hartall lost his job after losing 6 in a row? Moyes has lost 5 and got a draw. What's different? Not a lot, mate, apart from maybe 2 points, but I get your point. Yeah, I can't say why he's still there, to be honest with you. I cannot see, if you look at the history of what I've been saying throughout this season, I said, let's see what happens up to the World Cup, and hoping that we were going to do something different after the World Cup. Then it didn't change, and there was more of the same. And then I said to myself, okay, then maybe in the new year, etc. And then it didn't change again. And then it's gotten to the point now where even I'm sort of thinking, well, what does he have to do to lose his job? Because there's nothing seems to have been changing. The tactics, we had that one good game against Nottingham Forest, and then we seem to just sort of revert to type. And if we're treating Brighton as if they're Real Madrid, Barcelona, etc., what next? Because we have got some tougher games coming up. Paul, Nolan would be good. Might use the bench properly, as Moyes has no idea. Peter, it was a bottle he threw during the Zoomer coming on fast. I thought, well, someone said he threw an iPad. Someone else said he's thrown a bottle. And that was because of Zoomer. Right. Okay. Steve, he's thrown something on the floor in anger. The only way, and boy, oh boy, did Zoomer not look fit. The only way Moyes will lose his job is if the dwarf catches him tubbing his bird. Andy, Moyes is a dinosaur, uses tactics like the dinosaurs went extinct years ago. It's time our club to make a change, move into the modern era, young managers with exciting time. And this is what I'm thinking when Ian asked the question about why is he not gone yet. I'm just wondering, maybe the penny's dropped with Sullivan. He's going, I think I know the type of manager I want. Maybe someone completely different to what we've had over the past few years, and maybe going for a younger manager. I'm guessing, and maybe that's why he's sticking with Moyes, hoping he'll get us out of this fix, or certainly not get relegated, and then go for a younger manager in the summer. I'm guessing, but I can only speculate. That must be the only reason why he's keeping Moyes, apart from the whole money thing, which I think is a little stupid if that was said, because if we go down, we lose far more than paying off a manager, what, £5-6 million. Vinay, Brighton exposed Moyes' tactics as useless. Good passing team could get past the Moyes side. I agree. Martin, if we survive this season, it'd definitely be down to other teams. Moyes won't get us out of this fight. I agree with that. If he's enough of a man to stare at the fans from the touchline, he should be enough man to go clap them after a 4-0 as well. He only claps when he beats Forest at home. He went straight down. He didn't even come over. He wouldn't dare come over to the fans after what happened at the weekend. John, the rumor is Benitez wanted a 5-year contract and not a 6-month. I think he wanted a 3-year contract and not a 6-month contract. But whatever, I don't think the board were willing to give him that. And I for one, for that particular manager, all right, he's all right. But for that particular manager, I kind of would agree. I wouldn't have wanted to give him a longer contract than the end of the season, to be honest with you. Otherwise, like I said, we'd be stuck with him. We'll have another Moyes situation on our hands again in a year or two. Victor, play Villa Sunday. If we lose the next 3 games, 3 weeks later, if he's not sacked after we will. Yeah, if we don't win against Villa, I do think it will be the end of it. I really do. I cannot see him going beyond that. But anyway. Did you see this? The analysis of the Brighton game? I did. I'll talk about that in a little while, mates. Mark, good evening. Good evening to you, mate. In a normal season, we'll be firmly in the bottom 3 and adrift from 17th spot. Moyes is fortunate that more than 2 other teams are struggling, which might be why the board are keeping him. That's a bad way to rely on. Us staying up, though, isn't it? We should not have to. A team like West Ham United, should be standing toe to toe with a team like Brighton, first of all. We shouldn't be changing our tactics to avoid losing against them. And I know our record, but good grief. And then you're right. There are 2 or 3 other teams that are worse than us, but we shouldn't be in that position, should we? Debbie and Mark, Rafa has had a good managerial experience managing sides like Madrid, Inter. Yes, he has. Yes, I'm not disagreeing with that, but I just think we need something different, don't we? We need something. Look, Rafa coming in maybe have kept us, but would you want to keep? There are managers that we've had a bit too long. Moyes is the next one in the line. Is that what we want to keep doing? Maybe we do need a complete change of tact and going for a completely different style of manager. So I'm not disagreeing that he hasn't been a good manager in the past, but would you want to see his tactics for the next 2, 3, 4 years? I don't know. Stuart. What is it? What is it? A Cyprus ship bag Thursday evening. Anyway, we will beat Villa. Don't underestimate the Cypriot team. Not saying that because I'm Greek, but do not underestimate what might be coming our way on Thursday night. There's a very good reason why the Cypriot team, Larnaca, didn't want to move their game to the bigger national stadium, which would have taken a capacity, I think, of 25,000 or something like that, because they got a little tight little stadium, 8,000 capacity. We haven't even sold out our capacity, by the way. It's gone to Claret membership. I don't know how many tickets are left, but I think on Friday there was something like 600 or 700 tickets left of the 1,600. So we haven't sold out our capacity after everyone complained that they, we weren't going to have a big capacity, etc. And there's a good reason why they want to keep it at their stadium, because it's tight. There's going to be a lot of noise there, and that might be quite intimidating, especially after coming off a 4-0 defeat. Daniela, come on, where do the players fit in this? They have some responsibility. Over half our team have been. I absolutely agree. But, sometimes you have got to look. I agree. I totally agree. I look at some of the players and the way they performed at the weekend, and it was poor, regardless of the tactics used, etc. But we were really poor. But we did change our tactics. Exactly the same team started as it started against Forest, but we did change our tactics, which I don't think was good. P-Gads, I say go for Scott Parker. He's got a good history of getting out of the Championship. If we go down, then, I know you're joking, but in a way, if we go down, then why not someone like Scott Parker? Steve, never seen so many angry people like I did on Saturday. Shocking. No fight, no passion. It wasn't pleasant. And so many fans left well before the end of the game. Good evening to you, James. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Tony Hammer, good evening to you. Sullivan will be gone in the summer. That's why he's holding out on Moyes, so he does not have to put his hand in his pocket. If we go down, Sullivan's take on the club, as in profit, will go down with him. So I know what people are saying, that people do think that Sullivan will be gone and he will sell up. It's quite possible. It's quite possible. But from what I understand, Sullivan doesn't want to go. Sullivan wants to stay. But if we go down, it's a massive gamble, because his club value, will go down with the club. Foxes, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Kent, Kretinsky won't buy gold shares because Sullivan won't relinquish majority share. And as far as I'm aware, you're spot on. Sullivan gets first refusal on Mr. Gold shares. Can you clarify the inheritance taxing? The inheritance tax thing, I can't, because the shares in David Gold's shares have gone to his family. They need to. They've already said themselves that they're prepared to hold on to them for the next couple of years anyway. So it doesn't look like they're willing to sell. It doesn't look like Sullivan's willing to relinquish the majority shareholding, as you say. But I don't know about the inheritance tax. I mean, if it's like any other inheritance tax, it will be a 7-year thing, before, you've got to have it. But I don't know. I think that's on property. So I don't know the situation, but they're going to have to probably hold on to them for a good few years in order not to pay a heavy inheritance tax on them. So I just don't. I think Kretinsky will be there as an investor, and until that time, if he thinks it's no longer a worthwhile investment, he'll probably walk away or sell up and go. I don't honestly think he'll buy the club. I don't think he's interested. Huge. I could be wrong. Huge. Good evening to you. This is definitely squeaky bum time. Definitely not the same team since Alan Irvine and Stuart Pearce. I can't remember who asked me, and I do have the note in front of me. Someone, might have been you, might be someone else. Can you look into how many points we gained whilst Irvine was here and since he left? And I haven't been able to do that, but I will promise to do that and give you the answer, because it will be interesting to see how things have changed in terms of results with when Irvine was still here. And I know people are talking about Pearce, but I'm not so sure about Pearce. The rot started whilst Pearce was here, but Irvine, yeah, quite possibly is a bit different. Any inside info on unrest against Moyes? No inside info. It's just that what I've told you guys before. We know that there's been unrest throughout the transfer window. We know that what Antonio was saying, almost selling himself, saying offers have come in and all that sort of thing. That's now public knowledge. We know about Ben Rama. We know that Ben Rama has kind of had words with David Moyes as well. We believe that the conversation that's been had over the past few weeks with Declan Rice and the players, there have been conversations with Moyes, but not necessarily a falling out, but maybe a sort of let's have an open honest conversation. We know that Moyes has fallen out. He's got his favourites. We know that. These are no sort of insider information. It's kind of things that we know. Antonio has been, how can we put it? From what I understand, Antonio's caused unrest and I think when you look at what he's been saying over the transfer window, I wonder how much that may have affected some of the other players. I don't know, but it's not. You could see Rice in the comments that he's recently made as well. He's not happy with the situation, so there's an imbalance here, isn't there? And quite possibly, the one way to solve it, or the way to solve it, is maybe Moyes going and maybe someone like Nolan taking over, who's probably got a better understanding of the players than Moyes has, or maybe certainly be more willing to make do different things with the squad, with the tactics, and so on. Cockney, Potter has not gone bad at Chelsea. It's Chelsea being impatient, get him in. It won't happen till the end of the season, though. I think they'll stick with Potter until the end of the season. That poor man. Here's a call. How much did they spend? 400 mil in the January transfer window. Go and make it work, mate. Dean, good evening to you. What's the bet in the? You haven't finished your sentence. Let's scroll down. Good evening, Garino. How are you? Good evening to you, NWO. How are you? Moyes plays the percentage tactics wise, and it never works, does it? Dean again. Would any of us be surprised if Sully said Moyes is the best manager to get us promoted if we get relegated? Do you know what? I don't think Moyes will get us promoted if we get relegated. I think there will be other managers. People have talked about Scott Parker. I mean, I know jokingly, but I think there will be other managers that will probably get us out of this situation more than Moyes will. Lee, good evening to you. West Ham is massive. I do love my club too, mate. But we're not as massive as we think we are. Right. I'll tell you what, let's stop there. Let's go into the next part of the show, which is all about playing. Right. In playing news, what do we have here? Let's get to the right thing. Is that one? Yeah, no, I've done that one. Let's start off with Connor Coventry. Connor Coventry has gone on loan and he's doing exceptionally well. He played his part in a memorable Rotherham United win against Queen's Park Rangers. I don't know why it's memorable, but that's what I copied. 3-1 to Rotherham against Rangers in the Championship on Saturday. Consecutive home wins were secured by Jordan Hugill. Do you remember him? Who struck a brace as captain. Since joining the Millers in January, Coventry has tasted defeat just twice. Matt Taylor's team winning 2 of their last 3 championship fixtures. They sit 18th, not great, But with 9 wins in the league this season, they're 2 points clear of the relegation zone. So they're in trouble. But Connor Coventry, ironically, I know you're going to think, hang on a minute, they're in trouble. But Connor Coventry has put some stability in that central midfield. He's doing okay. Coventry, he as an individual, as a player, is getting great experience on loan at the Championship club, and it will bode well for when we play in the Championship next season. A win for goalkeeper Brian Kinnear. Recorded his first clean sheet since moving on loan to Falkirk in January. A game that was goalless at the interval saw Falkirk strike 5 in the second half. With Craig McGuffey netting a 14-minute hat-trick. Yeah, they won by 5-0. With 4 triumphs, see, I've copied and pasted this, so I do forgive me. It's the first time I'm reading this. With 4 triumphs in their last 5 fixtures, Falkirk sits second in Scottish League One. And he's doing another. It's great when players go out on loan and they actually get game time. This is his second start, and in his second start, he's had a clean sheet. Another player that's out on loan, another goalie that's out on loan, is Nathan Trott, who's helped his side to a 3rd win in 5 matches since the Danish league has resumed. He's playing for Visual Bold Club and he's doing exceptionally well. Again, he's become number 1 choice for the club out there, and that bodes well as well, because we're going to need a keeper or 2 at the end of this season, aren't we? Victory for Arthur Masuaku. Came back after a suspension in a 2-1 win for Besiktas over Ankaragucu in the Turkish Super League. So 2 wins in their last 5 games takes Masuaku and company to 3rd in the table, 8 points from Fenerbahce in 2nd place. So well done to all our loanees. There are other loanees, but they've not played. So next up, injuries. Well, of our 5 players currently injured, 3 stand a 50-50 chance of returning to the first team for the Europa Conference League game against AEK Larnaca on Thursday. We know that Maxwell Cornet's returned to action. He played for the under-21s, where he played the full first half. Some decent signs of him coming back, but he clearly looked he lacked match sharpness, match fitness, etc. It's quite possible that we may see him in the game against Larnaca on Thursday, but I think that might be down to the scoreline. I'm not so sure Cornet will start the game. But certainly you can see if the scoreline, if we're doing well, I can certainly see him coming on and playing a few minutes in order to gain match fitness there. Let's hope so, because he's one of the few players that we've got left that's got any pace about him. Next up, Tilo Kehrer. He missed the weekend's results, recovering from a fever. Again, there's a chance he could return into action on Thursday. It's quite possible, but he's another player that's another 50-50. Or we'd likely to see him back on the bench against Villa. But mind you, after Johnson's performance, I wouldn't be surprised if Kehrer, if he gets over his illness, starts next Sunday. Next up, Antonio. He missed the game. Well, we were told he missed the game because of a slight hamstring injury. And then, of course, because of how poorly we played, everyone's saying it's because we missed Antonio. Anyway, I think he'll be saved. I mean, it's quite possible he'll be back for the game against Larnaca on Thursday, and I think Ings should start against Villa, against his old club, on Sunday over Antonio. But again, I don't know. This hamstring injury came out of the blue. And of course, people have mentioned, has he had a fallout with Moyes? It wouldn't surprise me. Antonio thinks he should be our number 1 striker for every game. I personally don't agree. I think he's got his uses, but I personally don't think he should be starting every game. Vladimir Soufal, another 50-50. We think there's less chance of him starting, being back for the game against Villa, but we need him. Like I said, Johnson had amongst others, Johnson had a very poor game against Brighton. And now we realise just how good Soufal was, especially when it comes to defending. Lucas Fabianski, as we know, has had a plate fitted around his eye socket after picking up the injury against Nottingham Forest. It's unknown how long he's going to be out for. And it's quite possible he might miss the rest of the season. We don't know yet. And I did talk last week about, maybe putting a plate over it, like a mask over his eye. And someone did mention that, I think, was it the Brighton keeper, the number 1 Brighton keeper does that. But I just wonder how much that might impair a goalkeeper. And then, although he's back from injury, Kurt Zouma, he came on later in the second half for Ogbonna in the game against Brighton, and boy, oh boy, did he look rusty. I mean, we know what it's like with Zouma. When he gets going, he's great, but it takes him a couple of games to really get going. So I don't know if he's going to be risked against the Larnaca team on Thursday in order to be kept for the game against Villa. But what worries me is Villa have got one or two pacey players, and if Zuma's not on it, that could be a bit of a disaster. But he's back from injury as well. Right, let's move into your chat. Garino, you give Sullivan too much credit. He has not got rid of Moyes because they kept delaying in the hope Moyes would turn it around. But in the meantime, all decent managers went. There are still a lot of decent managers out there. There are quite a few that you'd say are pretty decent. But I don't know. I'm guessing, Garino. I'm guessing as to what Sullivan might want to do. Yes, I do think initially he did keep Moyes around because he thought he'd get us out of it. And I think Sullivan would have thought by now we wouldn't be anywhere near the relegation zone. But I do think Sunday, if we lose, it's got to be curtains for Moyes. It will be the last chance saloon for him. I cannot see it. I cannot see us going beyond Sunday if he loses. Real Simpsons, good evening to you. The board strategy is not that Moyes is a good manager, it's that there are 3 teams worse than us. If that's true, then remaining in charge is irrelevant. Anyone could be in charge. Yeah, good point. Epic. What a shame if we never get to see what a good manager could do with this squad. I know, because if we go down, this squad goes. You know, the vast majority of this squad will go. And you're absolutely right, because I think we know there's an awful lot of potential in this squad, and only if they were used in the right way. And as people have alluded to, when Rice came over for instructions, he shook his head. You saw Nolan lose it on the sidelines. You know, if he's actually lost the squad now, and if he's lost even his backroom staff, what's going to happen? You know, I can't see us putting in a performance that's going to get us any decent result against Villa at the weekend. NWO, why would he clap fans booing him? Well, no, but normally, no matter how bad it's been, he's always come over, he's always clapped. The players came over and clapped, but he walked straight down into the dressing room. Victor, do you think Sullivan really doesn't have the balls to sack Moyes when it's been Brady who has sacked our previous manager? Well, it doesn't matter. You know, Sullivan will just tell Brady to go and sack him. So they've sacked other managers before, but they've stayed with other managers for too long as well, haven't they? Avram Grant comes to mind. It's not so much having the ball. I don't know. You know, if it is only about the money, then I would be really, really disappointed. If it's only about giving him 5 million to go, you know, and getting in another manager. But I think it's more because Sullivan doesn't want to give a manager like someone like Benitez a 3-year contract. That's what I think more. Huge. The fans are also quite fickle as well. Fab had been excellent all season, yet fans go on and on saying he should be dropped for Areola. Areola in 2 games shows he's nowhere near Fab. Yeah, I've got my theory on that. I don't agree with that. It's been effing unfortunate that Areola comes in and we concede 7. If I look at all the goals that's been scored, I would say Areola's been probably liable for 1. And that was the first goal that Man United scored when Agerd scored the own goal. You look at all the others, was he at fault? I don't know. Ultra. Sullivan thinks just like Moyes. They're both prehistoric. If Moyes goes, they would just appoint another dull manager that's past their sell-by date. I think, Ultra, if that was the case, we would have taken Benitez by now. So I'm just wondering if they want to try and go a different route. Don't get me wrong. I'm not starting to stick up for Sullivan, you know, because like you guys said, you know, he should have got rid of Moyes sooner rather than leaving it to the last moment. Garino, Board and Moyes have created a perfect storm by being so stubborn and passive. All of this could have been avoided prior to the World Cup. Good evening to you, Mandy. How are you? We played the worst game in years against Spurs. We just played our worst game ever against Brighton. We're not losing with any spirit. Has he lost the players? Yes, I admit, I think now he must have done, especially with what Declan Rice has been saying in interviews, especially with what happened like people said during the game, where Rice went over for instructions and he walked away shaking his head. You know what? The first half of the Spurs game, wasn't bad. The second half we completely capitulated. But I've got to be honest, the game against Brighton is probably the one of the worst I can remember. James, if Moyes had any integrity, he'd go to the board and say it's not working. They're not listening to me and resign. Good shout. I agree. Larnaca are actually unbeaten at home, aren't they? So I think they lost their last game. Oh, at home. I don't know. They lost their last game. It might have been away, but I think you might be right. NWO, my dad's gone Cyprus holiday, can get tickets. Yeah, can't get tickets. Well, that's a surprise because they've gone on claret sale today, and when I checked just before I came on, they were still on sale for the away end. And guess who's going to Cyprus? Yes, I gave in the end. I knew I was going to go. Kev, good evening to you. I wouldn't want Nolan. I want Moyes and staff gone. Bringing Harry till the end of the season. Now, let's see. I'm not so sure. You know, we love to live in the past, don't we, us West Ham fans? I'm not so sure, to be honest with you. I don't think Harry. He'll be entertaining. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But I don't know. I'm not sure. David M. Don't forget, if we lose against Villa, won't have another game for a while because Man City fixture is postponed. Yeah, but that might be the time to finally let him go if we lose. Garino, they must surely pull the plug if we lose to Villa, seeing as there is just the international break to give any new manager time. But then again, I have deja vu. This might be a different scenario, Garino. If we do lose, then what David said, absolutely right. We've got an international break, couple of weeks off, get a new manager in and try and get some sense out of this squad. Mandy, if a player is poor and the manager keeps playing like Souček, then the manager takes the blame for poor performances. Well, yeah, it's the manager's fault and also the player for not picking up his game as well. Ian, 2010-11 season, Ian Wright predicted that we wouldn't win another game. We'd be relegated with a whimper. We were looking the same as this season. Funnily enough, that was under Vinay, players can't do much if they don't practice, pass and move in training. Also an element of greedy players such as Antonio not passing. See, we all have our theories, don't we? Some say, oh, if only Antonio was on, he would have held the ball up better. But I've been looking at Antonio all season and thinking, why is he not holding the ball up better? E. Davis, it's the manager's job to get them playing. Their souls have been crushed. Yeah, he's got to be the one to inspire them. I agree. Ultra, if you look at Moyes' managerial career, it's gone downhill ever since he left Everton, and he left Everton years ago. Garino, I heard some of Gold's shares went into trust, which means they can't be sold for 2 years. There you go. They did go into trust. You're absolutely right. I did say that when he died. You're absolutely right. So they can't be sold for more than 2 years. So that the Gold family are still going to be there for the next 2 years, which probably means that Sullivan will still be there as well. I think they go hand in hand, so yeah, or everyone wishing and hoping that Kretinsky will buy us out or a consortium will buy us out, etc. That doesn't look like it will happen. John Whetstone said Sullivan does not want to sell up. Yep. Gold shares were not put into a trust. Were put into trust before he passed, and that means inheritance tax on all his shares. That they were put. You're saying they were not put, but Garino's right because I remember reading about it, and they were put into a trust, and they've gone into the family name. Garino, all we need is Moyes to stay at home and Alan Irving to cut out on the touchline. Addy, good evening to you. Villa fans are up for it. Pretty much all of them expecting 3 points on Sunday, like every other team we play at the moment. See? It's not going to be easy. And if Moyes goes out to defend at home, there's going to be hell to pay. All right, I'll tell you what, let's stop there. Let's go into the final part of the show, which is all about what we've been talking about, really, isn't it? So we've had two disappointments this week. We've had disappointment in the FA Cup and we've had disappointment in the Premier League at the weekend. But it's a completely different type of disappointment, isn't it? Whereas in the game on last Wednesday, we went into the game against Man United. We were on the up. We played really well against Nottingham Forest. We thought what maybe, different, we've been playing well for a lot of games, against Newcastle away, we did okay. Against Chelsea, we did okay. First half against Spurs was all right-ish until we collapsed. And then Forest, we had a really good game. And so we thought maybe we were picking up some momentum. And let's be honest, we went into the game against Man United and we were upbeat. And we had a pretty decent, strong team that went out there, probably stronger than I thought there'd be, with quite a lot of players like Paqueta, and Antonio, Benrahma, Rice, etc., all starting. And we played really, really well. And we were on top of the game. In the first half, we were really on top. In the second half, up to the time we scored the goal, we were really on top. We were doing well. And it didn't look like there was going to be any other team to win that game on the night. It was really, really weird. And then, of course, as we know, three late goals paid to the game. Look, Saeed Benrahma's goal on the 54th minute was superb. The way he got it, the way he curled it in. The 6,000 traveling fans went mad, singing from the start to finish. All you could hear, my other half, she doesn't watch football. She watched it while I was up in Manchester. And she said, she was messaging me saying, all I can hear is the West Ham fans singing from start to end. You couldn't hear the Man United fans. The only time you did hear of them is when they scored their first goal. But we looked on top. We looked like we were a team that was going to win that game. We were on top. We had chances in the first half on that we could have gone ahead. Obviously, we had the Antonio got a chance in the first half. Look, and this is why it's not. I've got a downer on Antonio, but the first chance, De Gea is a great keeper. We know he's a world-class keeper. But that first chance with Antonio, if he'd have chipped it or if he'd have taken it round the keeper, we would have been 1-0 up before half-time. And then, of course, we had the second chance that Antonio had. And this one was probably worse than the first chance because we had Benrahma standing in the middle of the box waiting for it to be squared. But there's something about Antonio because he wants to be the goal scorer. And I get it. Goal scorers are greedy. They want to score goals. I understand that. But you've got to play for the team. And the problem is he didn't square that ball off in order to put us 2 up. If we'd have gone 2-0 up, I don't see Man United coming back from that game, to be quite honest with you. And I think we squandered our chances. And then, of course, they took control and they got the goals. The first goal, yes, I do blame Areola for that. He should have commanded his box and should have called for it. Even if he had to go through a gird to get the ball, I think maybe he was at fault. But then you can see the other 2 goals. It's not that our heads went down, but I don't know what happened in the final minute. I mean, why does that always happen to us? We've had it so much this season where teams have scored either early against us or right at the death. And yet again, another goal on the 90th minute took the stuffing out of us. But the performance overall, you've got to admit, was pretty bloody good. And it was a 3-1 win for Man United. It flattered them. It really did. You wouldn't have if you'd seen the result without watching the game, you would have thought same old West Ham getting thrashed away from at Man United, etc., etc. That wasn't the actual that wasn't the way it happened. For anyone that saw the game on TV or anyone that was there will tell you we played exceptionally well, and we came out of that game ironically going, yeah, we know we lost, but you know what? We played well. We played well, and we didn't deserve that defeat. And then, of course, you can imagine everyone's surprise when we went to Brighton at the weekend and got totally played off the park. If you managed to catch my post-match review as I was coming home from Brighton on Saturday, you would have seen how, you would have heard how I wasn't very upbeat. I was quite down. I was a little bit really dejected, sort of sitting there, just wondering to myself. It took me quite a while to decide to do a video. Because I wasn't even angry. I was just really kind of like the stuffing knocked out of me. And I just couldn't understand what had happened. Okay, a soft early goal. Fair enough. It was a soft goal, the penalty. But having said that, if our player had gone down like that, we would have called for it as well. The stats themselves, someone mentioned them earlier, 708 passes to our 368. 90% pass success rate for Brighton, 79 pass success rate for us, 66% possession. Okay, you'd expect that. 20 shots to R3, 9 on target to R2. I didn't even know we had 2 shots on target. I thought we just had the one. We were played off the park, completely played off the park, completely outsmarted, completely outmaneuvered by a team that we should be better than, but we're not. And when I look at Brighton, the way it's run, the way the whole team is set up, their manager was, I don't know, he was ill or whatever, couldn't make the game. That didn't matter. They get rid of players. They bring other players on. What's that chap's name? Mitoma, who gave Johnson a torrid time. They seem to have this churn. We're not bothered. You want to go? You go. We'll sell you. We'll sell you. We'll get someone else in who'll be as good as, if not better, than the player we've just sold. And you've got to admire them. The way they're run, the way they're managed. And everyone thought that, when they lost their manager to Chelsea, that they were going to, collapse, etc. Not a bit of it. They go out, they get themselves another manager. They just got a manager that will keep the system ticking over. And you've got to admire them. You've got to admire them. That's why we, and I've said this before. And I remember doing a show some months ago, I think during the World Cup, and talking about how West Ham might be trying to look for a sort of a Red Bull type model. It wasn't that I was suggesting for a minute that we're going to put that in overnight, but looking at teams like Brentford and Brighton and teams like that, the systems that they got in place, that's where West Ham should be. That's what West Ham should have as set up. We should have a scouting system. Well, we've got one now, but we should have the scouting system that's going to bring in young talent, that's going to, have the reserves there. If we let one player go, we bring in another one. If we let, it wouldn't be such a big deal. If we let Declan Rice, look at us, we're all like, Declan Rice is going, woe is me, etc. We shouldn't be in that position. We should have ready-made replacements going, you sell Declan for 100 million? No problem at all. Next in, and this is what Brighton do. And you look at the way they played against us. You look at the way they moved around. And Declan said something like, they play unique football. No, they play passing football, Declan. That's all they do. They play passing football, and they do it really well because they're well drilled. Everybody knows their position. Everybody knows what they need to do. They go out and they do it, and they play as a unit. We're not playing as a unit. We haven't been playing. I think we've seen maybe flashes of West Ham United playing as a unit. But otherwise, we're a bunch of individuals who've got no system. But that's down to the manager. That's down to the manager to have a system that's going to suit us. And then and then you start looking at the squad and people are asking the questions. Why did we then buy Scamacca if he doesn't suit the system? Why did we buy Paqueta if Moyes would have preferred a workhorse in the middle of the park? Actually, I think Paqueta is a bit of a workhorse. He's got the flair, but he gets his foot stuck in as well. So why did we buy certain players if they weren't going to fit a system that Moyes likes to play? And this is probably where it's gone wrong. Where it's gone wrong is we've tried to get different players in. Moyes' big mistake, or West Ham's big mistake, is thinking that we're a bigger club than we really are. By going out and buying the £50 million players, etc., and saying, right, yes, now what do we? And when you keep hearing Moyes going, it takes them time to settle in. What's dawned on me is it's not that it takes time for them to settle in. It takes 6 months for them to understand David Moyes' tactics. That's what the problem has been. The problem has been that Moyes has got these players and he's trying to square pegs in round holes again, which is where we were last season. We were trying to fit square pegs in round holes. We got away with it last season for most of the season, but we haven't gotten away with it this season. So why did we buy Scamacca if he's not the type of striker that Moyes wants? Why did we buy Paqueta if he's not the type of sort of workhorse that Moyes wants? Why did we buy other players if they're not the type of players that are going to fit into David Moyes' system? And that's what's been frustrating, because you look at the team, it was exactly the same team that went out against Nottingham Forest. No different. That's the team that won 4-0 against Forest. The only massive difference is the way we played. We played a completely different role. Whereas against Forest, okay, it was at home, but it shouldn't bloody well matter, should it? Whereas at Forest, we kept pushing the ball forward, always looking for Danny Ings, pushing it forward, pass and move. Get the wingers to play their game. You look at the way Ben Rama and Bowen played their game against Forest. They weren't even in the game. They got outsmarted. They were not in the game at all. We couldn't pass more than two passes together. But that's exactly the same team as we had against Forest, but our tactics were completely different. Moyes was afraid of Brighton, And when you start being afraid of Brighton, then, you know, as people have already alluded to in the chat, how does that bode against the likes of who are we playing? We've got Man United to come. We've got Newcastle to come. We've got other teams up there to come, you know, that we've got to play against. If we can't match Brighton, who are a good team, if we can't match them, how on earth are we going to match the likes of Newcastle, the likes of Man United, and so on and so forth? We've got some tough games coming up. It was an uninspiring game, you know, and equally uninspiring substitutions. You know, the subs that we made. I know people were complaining about bringing on Zuma later on, but Oggy did get a knock, and it didn't look like he was going to finish the game. But of course, the fall guy, the first substitution at half time, was not Saeed Benrahma. One of the players that could possibly create something for us was the first player that was taken out of the equation. You know, and Fornals, I like Fornals, I think, but he's become a bit of a workhorse as well. But I keep saying, if Fornals plays in the middle of the park, rather than being put out wide, you might see a different player. Fornals came in, out on the left, again, didn't really do much. He did less than Benrahma did. And that's why the fans were singing Benrahma's name in the second half. Because it was like, mate, why have you taken Benrahma off? The whole team were playing crap. Why have you, you know? And he said, oh, Benrahma didn't create enough chances. Good grief. We didn't do anything. No player did anything in that first half or the second half. So why just take it out on Benrahma? It was really, really weird. Other substitutions were made. You know, he got Downs on, looked too little too late. Downs should have come on earlier. Downs should have come on in order to shore up that midfield. They were just running through us as if we weren't there. You know, so maybe Down should have come on earlier. But another player that we didn't see any sign of whatsoever was this man. What on earth? I mean, we're talking about, has Moyes fallen out with Antonio? What's going on here? Because we know he's fit because he played against Man United the last few minutes. If he's not fit, then why name him on the bench? Then if he's not fit, then just don't name him at all, a bit like Zuma, and then bring in some of the youngsters, you know, Mbama and players like that. But he was on the bench. He didn't even get on. He didn't even get on the pitch for a minute. And that made me wonder, what on earth is going on? If he's not fit, why pick him? If he is fit, why not use him? I couldn't understand it. And the irony here is, and again, this is not a downer on Antonio. Antonio had a poor game against Man Utd. He missed a couple of chances, wasn't really playing as a team player, didn't win any balls, etc. And then when Scamacca came on for the last few minutes, he won more headers than Antonio did in the last few minutes of that game against Man United. So what on earth is going on? Why was Scamacca completely avoided, not put on the pitch? I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. You know, there are other things that happened. You know, as I said earlier, Johnson was having a torrid time down as a right back, got no support. Moyes, maybe in his mind, brought on Fornals to support Johnson, but then Fornals played out on the left. You know, so he wasn't supporting him. And I can understand that. This would have been the time, ironically, when we were under the cosh, maybe go through at the back, put Emerson as a wing back, put Johnson as a right wing back. I know he's not the best there. Bring Zuma on and put 3 central defenders on to try and shore it up again. But again, nothing changed. And we just went through that game as if we were half asleep. It was weird. And then, of course, the fans turned. And when the away fans turn, as other people have alluded to in the chat, that's game over. Because throughout the whole season, the away fans have been all right with Moyes. There've been rumblings, but on the whole, up to now, the away fans have kind of been okay. They've kind of like, you know, kept their nerve, etc., and not gone against Moyes. But the fans turned on Moyes, singing the songs. Don't know what you're doing. Sacked in the morning. It's funny. People were saying, oh, the Brighton fans are singing sacked in the morning. That wasn't them. That was the West Ham fans singing it to our own manager, you know, and don't know what you're doing, then singing Benrahma's song. It was really, really sad, really, really unfortunate. And then the incident that we've talked about as well with the, the altercation between Nolan and Moyes. And apparently there were words after the game. I can't corroborate that. I've only got what Sean mentioned it earlier to me, that and even he can't corroborate it, that he heard there were Moyes between Rice, Nolan, and Moyes, Rice and Nolan after the game. So if that's the case, where do we go from here? Because Sunday, forget Cypriot game on Thursday. Sunday is going to be absolutely crucial. And like I say, we got a goal down against Villa on Sunday. The atmosphere is going to be really, really toxic. Really toxic. And it's the first time in God knows how many away games I've been to over the years where I saw so many of the away fans leaving early at 3-0. Everyone, there were massive spaces in the away end. And I can't remember that happening for a very long time. And then, of course, Declan Rice came out with what he said about in the press conference. He said, he made this comment, didn't he? If they were experts, they'd be playing on the pitch. I hope he wasn't referring to the fans, because that would be a new low for Declan. And I can't, I'm trying to work out who he was referring to. If they were experts, they wouldn't be playing on the pitch. But I just don't know who he was referring to. If it was about the fans, that would be a new low for Declan Rice. And I hope he wasn't referring to us. But you don't know. Look, what happens from here? I want to say let's put this behind us and move on. But unfortunately, the way we played against Brighton, like I said, they're a good team. They're a well-drilled team. But we've got better teams to come. We've got Man United, we've got Arsenal, we've got Newcastle. In the 13 games that we've got remaining, we've then got to play Villa, we've got to play Fulham, we've got to play Southampton, Bournemouth. Southampton and Bournemouth are fighting for their lives. Fulham and Villa are no mugs; they're doing reasonably well. So like I said earlier, even if we went out and decided to try and draw every game, that would only take us to 36 points, which is not enough. This is the time, I think, now we go for bust. Moyes, Ben Rama, what was it Ben Rama said? Let us off the leash, let us play our game, etc. He's got to do it. And it sounds to me what Moyes did at the weekend is what a lot of people have been alluding to throughout the whole season, where he's got the shackles on. And maybe that's why when Declan walked away and shook his head, it was more of the shackling. I think we were 3-0 down by then as well. And I've got to be honest, one of the things that even I was sort of saying before, and even I stopped saying, is Moyes in his post-match interview said, well, the fans, I can understand the fans being upset. They've had 2 good years, finishing 6th, finishing 7th. It doesn't matter anymore, that we finished 6th and we finished 7th. It's where we finished this season that's even more important. But then Moyes does the things that really irritate people. And, someone alluded to it earlier, about it doesn't matter what the results are. Moyes will stick to his guns and pick the players that he wants to pick. Let's take, for example, Souček. It took a lot for Moyes to drop him from the team. He was dropped from the team after the Arsenal defeat. We lost to Brentford, and he used that as an excuse to bring Souček back. And then we drew a game and defeat to Wolves, etc. And then he finally dropped him again, and we started to, do well against Newcastle, Chelsea, Everton, and so on. And then he looked for another excuse to bring him back again. When we've seen Flynn Downs, for example, playing well in that position, but not being given the shirt on a regular basis. You took other players like Antonio and Areola. And now Areola, I think, I really do think Areola is unfortunate. I've been one that's been calling out for Areola to start, and I've hold my hand up and say, I think he's on par at least with Fabianski and a better distribution of the ball. And of course, what happens? 2 defeats, 7 goals conceded. Moyes will use that as I don't think Fabianski will be back, but if Fabianski was available, he'd drop Areola straight away. And then we have the conundrum, Antonio. Look, against Man United, he didn't have a good game. He was all right, but he didn't have a good game, and especially when you need a striker to put the chances away, he didn't put the chances away. And people are saying, oh, if we played against Brighton, it would have been different with Antonio. I really don't think so. We would have probably had to change our game to accommodate him, and I really don't think so. But like Fabianski, like Souček, like Antonio, Moyes will continue to pick those players when they're available. Anyway, we move on, don't we? We move on to Larnaca next on Thursday. I am going out there. I'll be flying out there on Wednesday and going to the game, probably with some family out there. No, they won't be support. Well, they might support West Ham. I don't know. But I'll be out there and I'll bring you some videos. I'll do some videos while I'm there. Maybe a little sort of video on my way and a video at the game and all that sort of stuff. Let's go into your chat. Oh, by the way, before I finish, something's got to change. And if we lose against Villa at the weekend, and if it is true that the board don't want to spend money in bringing in another manager, there probably is really only one choice then, and that has got to be Kevin Nolan. With the supposed comments made about any replacement being expensive, Nolan could be someone that could be a good interim for the rest of the season. Nolan must be thinking himself that our tactics aren't right. If he is disagreeing with Moyes and having done it maybe publicly in the game against Brighton, then maybe he would be a good alternative. Would he keep us up? I don't know. But at least it will give the team, the squad, maybe a shot in the arm that we need. It will save Sullivan his millions by not bringing in a manager he doesn't want. And maybe, just maybe, Nolan, he certainly brings some passion, wouldn't he? We know what Nolan was like. He wasn't everybody's cup of tea when he was at West Ham, but he certainly put in a lot of passion when he was a player. Why wouldn't he do it as a manager? Right, let's go into your comments. And I know I am only 40 minutes behind, so I do apologise. Kent, I never thought Kretinsky would ever buy the club outright. I may be wrong, just a hunch. I think I've got the same hunch as you, mate. Good evening to you, Mickey Smith. Where's the rest of the board's voices? If the Gold family and DK voted Moyes out, they would overrule DS. Very true. They would. But I don't think, I mean, you know, David Gold's son-in-law is on the board. I don't know which way he stands with regards to Moyes. We know that David Gold was an advocate for Moyes to stay, but Sullivan, I don't know. Peter, Daniela, Forest will stay up due to being unbeaten at home in the league since September. They've even drawn 0-0. They may stay up. I don't know. Let's see. Sai, has Scott Parker been sacked yet? Seen he was close to a week or so ago. I don't know. Mandy, I have no confidence with Moyes now. I felt the same at the end of the Pellegrini and the Bilic era. Yes, I agree. 8 Barley, good evening to you. Seeing that player update, that's a thought. It's all gone to shit since Arthur left. Trust me, we don't want Arthur back. We love him, but we don't love him that much. Lord Patrick, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Who else we got here? David M. Don't think it's fair that, let's say, Lampard or Gerrard is not good enough to look at Marco Silva. Do you want Lampard and Gerrard? Have they really done any good at, at the clubs they were at? Marco Silva? No, he had a bad experience at Watford, Everton, but he's doing well at Fulham. Yeah, okay. Casper, thank you. You reckon West Ham getting relegated eventually? Thank you. Is that for me? No. But thank you for the donation. If anyone, I think someone else might have made one earlier on, so do forgive me if I missed it. If anyone else made a donation, thank you as well. Casper, thank you. No, I don't think we're going to get relegated, but thanks for the money. Peter, Antonio had bust up with Moyes. That's what we talked about earlier on. Ray, drag him out by his ball. Drag who out by his balls? Oh, Moyes. Martin. Something is going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of unrest around the club. I believe there is now. Lord Patrick, as soon as Moyes gets sacked, he becomes the best unemployed manager out there. I think he's really, this may be the last big job he's got. I don't think he'll go back into management after this, to be honest. Or if he does, it might be international management, maybe. But I think this is the last big job he's going to have. Peter, Larnaca will fancy that, well, especially if they watched us play. They certainly would. Lee, thank you. If you're new to the channel, please hit the like, subscribe button, etc., and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on. But please hit that like button. It does help. Daniela, Peter, they draw the last 3 home games and they're crap away from home. And Southampton, the only bottom half team they have left to play. That's Nottingham Forest. I don't know. I don't think Forest is safe, to be honest with you. Martin, anyone would be better than Moyes. Catherine Tate's Joni Taylor will tell them the football is a load of shite. Addy Starr, Sully won't sack Moyes regardless. The bloke got another season after this one. He does have on paper. I don't think he'll be here, whether we stay up or not. I don't think Moyes will be here at the end of this season. I can't see it. Huge. Another player fans have said should play instead of Soufal. Johnson, definitely a championship player. Here's the irony, Huge. He's had a good run of really decent games in the past few weeks. He has. You can't deny that he hasn't. He has. But on Saturday, he was so much under pressure. He wasn't being helped out. The tactics didn't help him at all. The whole team played badly, but Johnson was poor. Good evening to you, Pash. I hope you're well. What a contrast from our team. I witnessed probably the best we played at home against Forest and decent away at the Manx, then dreadful at Brighton, getting new manager, getting any consistency. And here's the thing. No consistency. You've hit the nail on the head. No consistency. 1 minute we can be decent. The next, and we have played decently for the past few games. Apart from the second half against Spurs, even the first half we kind of held our own. But the games against Newcastle, the game against Everton, game against Chelsea, game against Forest, you've got to admit that was some good football there, and I know people will go, well, it was only Chelsea, it was only Everton, it was only it was only Chelsea, it was only Forest, etc. But you can only play who you got in front of you, and we should have at least held our own against Brighton, and they just, they humiliated us at the weekend. NWO, Moyes still our most successful Premier League manager. I don't think he is anymore. I think he's lost that mantle now. I could be wrong. I'll have to check my stats, but I don't think he is anymore. David M. Sullivan wouldn't pay 70k for an away day cup tie, let alone pay 6 mil for Moyes' sacking. Cockney Buccaneer, we need to start playing two up top. Where's Scamacca? Saturday was the perfect time to put Scamacca on with Ings. Didn't even get a minute. We played better when pressing higher, just need bodies in the box. Isolating one up front ain't working. You're spot on. Absolutely. Anyone going to Larnaca? I am indeed, sir. I am indeed. Ed, NWO, I've taken into account all of Moyes' games rather than compared him to other managers. He can't get the prize with games like Brighton. Sorry. Mark, good managers develop their players, play with them in the right position, adapt to the opposition, develop their tactics, bring through academy players, have good man management skills, etc., etc. Razor, good evening to you. Still, there's one person on here just not just deluded, but way out of order. Says Moyes is our most successful Premier League manager. Have we missed us winning something? He actually, NWO was actually right. Up until recently, he was our most successful Premier League manager. He's actually right. It's only recently that he's lost that mantle. So I've got to stand up for NWO. He was right. But now he's not. He's no longer. Razor, I don't want to upset you. Moyes is currently our second most successful Premier League manager. Cockney, Antonio, Benny and Bone, all desperate to score, thus making bad or greedy choices. You're right. Well, you're right. All of them are to blame. I actually don't disagree with that. And the game against Man United, we should have walked away winning that. We should have absolutely walked away winning that. But boy, oh boy, we didn't even get in 2 shots on target on Saturday. I'm surprised we even got that. Good evening, Mr. Dodds. Doddsy, how are you? See you Thursday, mate. Yes, it's really hot out there. Be careful, mate. It's really hot. And you're very, your skin is very pale, mate. Make sure you wear a lot of sun cream. You'll get frazzled. Stop, but I will see you out there, mate. Stuart, David Moyes is going nowhere. He's already picked the game he is willing to lose, Brighton being one of them, and then he will go all out on the ones he thinks he can win. What a tactic. What danger. Graham, we need excitement and Moyes needs retirement. Don't disagree. Peter, Moyes never goes... You're shouting. Moyes never goes all out to win games. He is a stubborn Scot who will never change. And if we lose at the weekend, I think he will be gone. Ralph, West Ham Fan TV, did you see Nick Marsh 10-minute rant was spot on? No, I didn't, unfortunately. I was out on Friday night. But no, unfortunately, I didn't see that. Good evening to you, Aaron. I've only just joined, so going to go back to the start. Please do. It's only ranting, I'm afraid, Aaron, but do enjoy it, mate. Razor again. NW, are you not... Name a manager. No, honestly, don't argue, guys, because unfortunately, Razor, NWO is actually right. Up until recently, Moyes was our most successful manager. That is true. It really is. David Bowles, good evening to you. I'm David Moyes, and I'm staying, so pick the bones out of that. Bonjour for now. Good evening to you, David Moyes. Cockney. A Scott is a Scott. Calling him a Scott isn't wrong. Calling him a sweaty sock might be a problem. I shouldn't laugh at that. WF. We played well for 70 minutes, but a game is 90. Agreed against Man United. Totally agree with that. How far behind am I? I'm trying to catch up. I'm now only 20 minutes behind. So do forgive me. I am trying to catch up. John. Brighton's first team cost 58 million and their most expensive player cost 20 million. They've got some lovely players. That Mitoma, God, he's a decent player, isn't he? Gary, the Premier League is vital. We need the senior players to step up, play fringe players in the Europa. The Villa game and Newcastle games are vital. I totally agree. We do need to win those games without a shadow of a doubt. Ultra. Moyes wouldn't know the Red Bull model if he hit him in the head. Red Bull model is all about signing young players and developing them and selling them for millions and millions. I do agree. I do agree. I don't know what was well said, but thank you, Ed. Cockney. No prima donnas in Brighton's side. We have a lot of players who think they're special. We do. We do. And that's become a massive, massive issue. Lee, I know Sharky, but I'm still West Ham, still going to support no matter what. And that's what grabs us by the googly ganglies. It is, mate. I mean, look, you know, here I am being pretty much depressed, going to almost every home and away game this season. And I'm still, you know, I still went to Brighton. I'm still going to go to Cyprus. I went to Manchester in midweek. You know, I'll be there for this Villa game and we'll moan and we'll complain. But we love West Ham United, don't we? And we only want what's best for West Ham, of course. And when we see West Ham being abused in the way it has been, in you know, players not trying, I don't know, a player's not trying. I'm in 50-50 about that. I think it's more about the tactics more than the players not trying. But when the tactics are wrong, the players go, well, what do I do now? You know, and then, you know, as much as I want it back, Moyes, and you know I have, throughout most of the season, I can't anymore. Saturday was just abysmal. It really was terrible. WHU. Brighton don't just pass well. They suck our front players in. They pass around them through the centre. You know what was happening on Saturday? When they got the ball, Casado was standing just outside the 18-yard box, waiting for the straight pass from the keeper that no one bloody well cut out all the way through the game. And he turned, no one in front of him, and started to set up the attacking play. That's what I want. That's what I want Declan to do. I don't want Declan try and run and score goals because he can't. You know, he gets the odd one every now and again, but I want Declan to do the same. Pick the ball up from just outside the 18-yard box, turn, and then start spraying the ball around and moving it forward. And Casado did that so well. And not once throughout the whole game did we stop him doing that. Picked it up, turned, had space. Before anyone was on him, he was at the halfway line. And he did that throughout the whole game. Easy, really simple passing, nothing special, nothing outlandish. And when Rice turned around and said, they're unique, they played the game so simply. Get it? Look up, pass, move. Look up, pass, move. Get it out wide. Get it in the middle. Get it to wherever. You know, we just didn't press. We let them play their game, but boy, did they play their game well. Vinay, mismatch of Moyes' tactics and Sullivan's signings. Total mismatch. You know, it is. It's evident, isn't it? It's a total mismatch. You know, why did we buy Scamacca? I don't blame the player. Everyone's saying, oh, Scamacca's an Haller number 2. Actually, if he was an Haller number 2, I'd want him to stay even more and score more goals because Haller ain't shit. You know, and Paqueta, you can tell that Paqueta's a good player. You can tell some of the players we bought, but if they're being played in the wrong way, how long did it take for Moyes to work out that Paqueta is not a number 10 and plays deeper? You know, he should have known that when he bought the player. How long has he, you know, he should have also known that Scamacca is not a lone striker. And what's going on there? The scouting report, apparently they get a big, thick scouting report to tell you about the players that we want to buy. So what's in that Moyes didn't read? Right. Red Bull model more like Tizer. I like that one. E. Davis. Moyes could have had a squad of 40 players and he would still put them in the wrong positions. He's broken. Adam. Our defence is too slow. Our midfield is too slow as well. Until we sort them areas out, we'll be a mid-table team. I wouldn't even mind if we were a bloody mid-table team. We're not even that. We're languishing, aren't we? And Mandy, the window isn't open. How can a bid come in? For who? No, oh, if you're all talking about, Declan going, etc., it's all a load of twaddle, and we know this, because you're absolutely spot on. You can't make a bid outside, and also you can't make a bid for a player that's in contract. It's called tapping up. So there are no bids for any players coming in or going. Man, don't. Are you going to talk about what Moyes did when the singing started again? I've done that. I'm so far. I'm so far behind in the chat. I hope I hope I've covered that. I think I have. Cockney. Moyes is afraid of everyone. That's why we only play one up front. Yeah, it's not good. Peter, sorry, Brentford 1-3-2. Didn't update the page. Brentford 1-3. Oh, that was tonight, wasn't it? Rupert, good evening to you, sir. How are you? Get the beers in. Well, you're not going to Cyprus, are you? And don't forget to pack your Willie for Larnaca. I don't need, mate. It's 27 degrees out there. Mr. Smith. Miss Smith, sorry. Benny had completed 3 passes first half, to be fair. Yeah, tell me a player that completed more. I don't think anyone played any worse or better than him. Steve, good evening to you. It was great watching West Ham in Division 2 in 79-80, winning the FA Cup, going up the following year, losing to Liverpool in the League Cup, go down, start again, bring those dark days back. Do you know what? Ironically, not that I want it, but it might actually be a blessing in disguise if we go down. Not that I want it. Brian, I'm no conspiracy theorist. However, I find it hard to believe that every player that started for us versus Brighton had a bad game is coincidence. That game was thrown by the players. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't think a player will go out there. I think when you're given the tactics that you don't agree with, you're kind of, maybe your heart's not in it, but throwing the game, I don't know. There is a reason, Mandy, why he hasn't beaten a top 6 team away. Yes, because he's too afraid of them. David, Brighton was 2-0 up, and what did they do? They brought on Welbeck. What Scamacca must be thinking. Exactly. This is what I couldn't understand. Why something's happened with Scamacca. I'm sure a story's going to come out sooner or later. We've been hearing rumours, as people have alluded to. Has he fallen out with Antonio? Wouldn't surprise me. It looked like Declan had enough when he was shaking his head, walking away from the touchline. It's Scamacca. Scamacca was fit, and if he wasn't, don't pick him. And I wonder if we're going to hear a story about that as the week goes on. And it's going to be very interesting to see who Moyes plays against Larnaca on Thursday, whether Scamacca starts or not. Kev, Moyes looked and sounded like a beaten man in the pre-match press talk. Imagine pre-match. Can you imagine what he was like after? Anthony, if Antonio really had a hamstring from the Man U game, then maybe save Scamacca for the Euro Conference so Ings has a rest. Possibly. I can see the logic in that, but for goodness sake, surely you could have given Scamacca, given that he's not had a lot of game time, given that he's only just come back from injury, surely you would have given him 15, 20 minutes, at least to build up his match fitness, if nothing else. Aidan, cheers, Del, for the after, mate. Good luck. Thank you. And thank you for watching. Much appreciated. Lee, yes, Del, something's up with Scamacca. Would you want to question him without his background? His dad might come over. Yeah, well, if people know the story, he went up and smashed, was it cars at Roma's ground or something like that? Yeah, you wouldn't want his dad coming over. E. Davis, he also put Paqueta on the right so he couldn't link up with Emerson and Benny. They looked great in Manchester, didn't they? Good evening to you, old school. I hope you're well. I'm an away fan, keep away fan. Bloody hopeless with that jock. Mandy, bringing on Fornals for Benny just shows how much he has lost the plot. You do that when you are 2-0 up. Yeah, because Ben Rama played no better or no worse than anybody else. Fornals, I love Fornals. I keep saying he's sucked the life out of Fornals. I remember when Fornals first came to West Ham United, he was a little dynamite. He was all over the gaff. And now he's been. Why has Fornals and Lanzini completely fallen out of favour? I was shocked that Lanzini came on, not Scamacca at the death. Why? And I like both of them, and I think they're decent players. But Fornals, if you put him in the middle to link up the midfield with attack, yes. But again, he was out wide, didn't do anything. Gary, we need to beat teams around us. Villa, Southampton, Newcastle, Fulham, Bournemouth, all up and coming next month. We'll decide. That is very true, Gary. But can you imagine the pressure, we're going to be under if we lose against Villa and then we got Southampton and games like Fulham, Bournemouth, etc. It'll put even more pressure on us. Miss Smith, Brian, you're not the Messiah. Very naughty boy. Great film. Great film. If you haven't seen that, you should go and watch it. Life of Brian. Anyway, James, we're not advertising films here. James, how can the fans complain about Moyes not clapping them after the game when they were Well, James, he's done it for every other game, but it was toxic on Saturday. I kind of understand, to be honest with you, why he didn't come over. He would have been booed. Razor, this something Moyes has certainly made our club an embarrassment. Sullivan too, and only the pundits as usual want Moyes to stay and take us down. Over 1 year of relegation form and still here. How far behind am I? Christ, I'm trying to catch up. You lot write too much. John McCarthy, good evening to you. No, I can't. I hope you're well. Anthony, Shearer and Aboglahor said Moyes should be sacked, so not all pundits support Moyes blindly. It is true. Some of them say he should stay. Some of them say he should go. John, Stel, yes, I am. So you need an Uber to, mate, I'm going nowhere near Iron Appa because it's on the other side of the island. Anyone that's going to, let me warn you now, anyone that's going to Cyprus for the game, don't go to Iron Appa. It will take you hours to get there and then hours to get back. There is no point. And most of Iron Appa, probably 90% of it, is shut. So don't bother. Stay in Larnaca and have a good time there. Claudius Hempstead, good evening to you. Moyes should do the honourable thing and walk. As most people are saying, I totally agree. Ben Hamilton, goalkeeper, least of our problems. It's the setup of the team and the players brought into the club. Square pegs in round holes. Gary, Deck looks deflated to be playing around players who don't give a money. Well, hold on. I don't think players are not giving the monkeys. I think players do hurt. I think, you've seen when we're doing well, players around that I don't think they're walking around. I think maybe now the tactics that Moyes is using is deflating them all. So I don't think they don't care. But let's be honest, Declan has been not much better this season, to be honest. Matt, most worrying is that he seems to have ruined all our best players. There you go. You bring Paqueta in and you turn him into an average footballer, then what they're going to think? Rice looks a different player now. Skamaka looks like a broken man. Let's scroll down a bit. Do forgive me for scrolling down too much. Anthos, good evening to you. We didn't turn up. I'll be in AEK and still. Anyway, let's try and meet up, for a beer beforehand or something like that, if we can. So message me and let's try and do that, Anthos. That'd be nice. Let's scroll down. Anthony, without Areola, could have been 7-0. Three good saves. Him, Ings, Emerson, only ones with credit for me. Who else have we got? Martin. Nolan sits there all game playing Candy Crush on his iPad. Maybe he lost at Candy Crush, which is why he smashed it on the floor. Fuck, I've lost another Candy Crush game. I've never played Candy Crush. Oh my God. Hang on, people. Here she is. Good evening, Hammerette. Long time no see. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. John, Nolan was ignored by Moyes and flung his iPad. See, getting slightly similar-ish stories. Moyes gave Decker's instructions and he walked away shaking his head. He's lost it then, hasn't he? Good evening to you, Simon. How are you? I hope your Monday's okay. Well, we've had better Mondays, but thank you for joining, Simon. Much appreciated. Ultra. We're slowly turning into Watford number 2 with all the managers we go through. Well, ironically, we don't go through a lot of managers. We actually don't. Yeah, we are a team who traditionally hold on to our managers, but there's been a bit more of a churn in the last few years, definitely. Old school. No Gerrard or Lampard, but I'll maybe take the dinner lady. I don't want Gerrard or Lampard. Graham, Moyes is a rabbit caught in the headlights. He doesn't know where to run and about to be killed by the truck. Who else have we got? Let's scroll down. Bee's knees. Good evening to you. Moyes needs to grow some balls and play. He's just got to. Thank you, Casper. Much appreciated. And we'll bid you farewell. Should we bid Casper farewell? Yeah, let's bid Casper. Or someone's... No, I haven't done that. Block. Farewell, Casper. Thanks for your input. He's just increased my viewers by 1. So that's all good. Hamret. I've got a theory. The decent performance after Rice's meeting behind Moyes' back shows the board how we can get better results without the manager. Should we make Declan Rice player manager? No. Who else we got? Man. 4-4-2. Rice, Paqueta in the middle. Bone and Benrahma or Antonio either side on the wings. And then Skamaka and Ings up top. Would you, Stel? I actually wouldn't play 4-4-2. I'd play a 2. But The only player I wouldn't put in there is Antonio, to be honest. Bone and Benrahma, yeah. Paqueta, Rice in the middle, Skamaka and Ings. You could see, I'd make it a 4-4-1, 4-4-1-1 I'd go with, which is not too dissimilar, I guess. John, do you remember when Sully bitched and moaned about having to spend 50k to get the team up to Manchester? He did, but those were different days. He only had a few million in his pocket rather than hundreds of millions in his pocket. Steve, look at the shite Moyes came out with when Fornals came on. He said we needed to go more defensive, and we need to go more defensive. Plus, Pablo's played well lately. He hasn't even been in the team. Hammerette, Moyes has kept his job thus far because of our Conference League form. I'm convinced he would have been outed had we dropped out of that early. That's very possible. Good points. Vinay. Moyes too is maturing like a vinegar, pure balsamic vinegar, but he thinks he's a fine French wine. We should bees knees. We should win against Larnaca, but we've got no chance against teams like Feyenoord. Judging by what Feyenoord on in it, are they in it? I don't think they are. Judging by the shit show at Brighton, no, we come across a better team, we are in trouble. Scott's GP Scott's seems like a circus to this club. Moyes, Anton. Oh dear. Oh, like a curse, not a circus. Anthony, Ray Stewart and McAvenny were top-class jocks for us. Don't let Moyes tarnish those top lads. True. Yeah, good point. Moyes, thank you. Waiting for the asteroid to save what's that. Look, you don't have to, but I really do appreciate the money. Thank you. That's beer money for London. For Cyprus, should I say. Ed. Oh, E. Davis. We are playing 80s football. It blows our manager's mind that players can actually change position on the field. It's embarrassing. Daniela. Still, I agree with you about Deck, but every pundit is saying Rice has to score more goals to be world class. No. Some of the best players. I can't remember his name. The little lad that you not Kante, but the one before. We've seen world class central defensive midfielders who don't score a lot of goals, who sit and do the job that they're meant to do. I don't think Caicedo scores that many goals. You know what I want Declan to do is sit and defend, help to defend, and that allows the rest of the team to go forward, doesn't it? Gary, after supporting West Ham for 30 years, that rubbish on Saturday, there was no pride to wear that shirt apart from Rice and Benny. And yet Benny got taken off. Mandy, Cornet, Skamaka and Pac-Man cost 100 million. Get them on the pitch. Exactly. What could go wrong? Might start scoring a few goals. Stuart, no more crap Declan not going and West Ham will stay up. End of love you. I like your optimism. Declan, I've actually said if we stay up and if we win the Europa Conference, I could see quite maybe Declan Rice maybe staying another season, because if he sees out his contract, he can go anywhere he wants for whatever he wants, get a large signing on fee, etc. Might benefit him. But if we go down, well, no, he won't be staying. Peter, see Fulham got that Solomon from Shakhtar, who scored in each of the last 5 games. Steve, to be honest, Stel, I don't give a toss about the conference, to be honest. It's all about the Premier League. It is about Premier League survival, but I also do give a toss about the Conference League, to be honest with you. I want us to have something. If we get through to the end of this season, survive the Premier League, and then not at least be in a final of a competition like the Conference League, I would find that even a bigger disappointment, because it would have just been about fighting relegation throughout the whole season. At least this gives us a little bit of hope. I get what you're saying, but I'd like to see us, not at the price of going down, but I'd like to see us go for that Conference League trophy. Good evening, Sniffer. Sullivan may be gone in the summer. If the Gold family sell their shares, they have to pay 40. Well, this is the thing. We talked about this earlier. They've got their shares in the trust, not going to be sold for the next 2 years. I can't see Sullivan going. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. Dan Warner, good evening to you. We've got Dithering David Moyes, doesn't know what he needs. Skamaka at the back, Zuma in attack. Moyes at the sack. Good song. Ultra, how far have I got? I'm catching up, 10 minutes behind. Skamaka's dad to knock some sense into Moyes, then Triple H will finish him off with a pedigree. Man, don't. Bring Skamaka's dad over, actually. You can have a scrap with Moyes. I know which side I will be on. Moisaurus. Moyes should do the honourable thing and work for Steven Spielberg and Dono Extra. Chris, are you sure still Napa to Larnaca is less than an hour? It ain't. Trust me, I've done it, and it ain't less than an hour unless you're going at some speed. It really isn't less than that. It's a bit longer than that. But what I'm saying is, Iron Napa is going to be shut for the. It's going to be shut when people get there. They can go though. It means that more room in Larnaca for me. Mate, thank you. We've been awful since Stellas Oaku stopped showing his video, hostage video. Have a thank you, mate. Much appreciated. After YouTube take their percentage, I think I'll be left with about 50p. But really much appreciated, Fo. Thank you. Dan Warner, Moyes is an absolute disgrace. Has gone from hero to zero. Get out of our club. Man, don't. I don't feel like blaming the players. I think Moyes is holding them back. They want to win. They want to attack and play good football. But if the tactics don't allow that, what can they do? Yeah. You know, and I know, what was it, last week's show, the week before, I can't remember, talked about, well, just have anarchy on the pitch and let the players decide what they're going to do and forget what Moyes says. And I don't know. You know, clearly they respect the manager enough to go with his tactics, even if they don't agree with it. Would you ask them to do what they want to do? I don't know. Irons lady, stick Dex at centre half. Oggy and Zuma ain't fit. Drop Souček, bring in Downs and Fornals. Good shout. Gary, good evening to you. Sullivan doesn't sack Moyes soon. I'll be convinced that for some reason, unbeknownst to me, that they want to get... And people have talked about that. People have said, oh, yeah, the board want to get relegated because Sullivan will get all the parachute money, etc. Trust me, it'd be like pissing in the ocean if we get relegated because the whole value of the club goes down. The whole value of any of our good players goes down. You know, they'll lose far more than they'll gain from parachute money. So I don't think I don't know any owners that will want us to get relegated deliberately. It doesn't make financial sense. You know, the value of the club, value of the players, etc., would be catastrophic for a team like West Ham. You know, and the parachute money won't cover half of that. Aimer, good evening to you. Did Alex Ferguson ever drop Beckham, his most creative player? Moyes does that with Benrahma. Agreed. There's no reason to do it. I don't understand why he does it. Makaleli is the one I was thinking of. Thank you, Miss Smith. Thank you, Mr. Mace. I hope you're both well. Makaleli. Funky T. Where did it go wrong? Not signing a striker in 22. Where has Noble disappeared to? You know what? Yes. And I think I said that the other day about it all started to go a bit wrong in January 22 when we didn't strengthen. And then things just started, you know, that squad that we had, you know, were pushed to the limit and couldn't really ended up, you know, running out of steam. This season, we don't have that problem. We've got a squad, but Moyes is not using the squad. Andy, Larnaca, no, mate, I'll tell you what, don't be surprised if it goes nowhere near that. I'd love it to happen. Even though I'm a Greek, I'd love it to happen, but I can't see it, to be quite honest with you. Jonathan, what is sad is we've been so bad this season. I can't even be angry anymore or be bothered to figure out a team that might win something. Can't watch this anymore. I know what you mean. Aimer, Amma or Aimer? I've got 12 shirts from the last 12 years. Every weekend they get put back in the wardrobe. Keep them. James, Declan, the vast majority of pundits talk absolute shite, which is probably why they call it talk shite. Absolutely, I agree with that. Ray, Moyes is too self-opinionated. He's the Nicola Sturgeon of the footballing world. Man, don't give. If you're watching this, David Moyes, I want you to let the players go out there and attack. Stop taking Benrahma off. Stop keeping Skamaka on the bench and stop using the last 2 years as an excuse. Old school. Mandy, not like they're going to use that 80 mil. What did Mandy say? It's up there somewhere. I haven't got it. So, Gary, anyway, I'm off. Hope everyone had a nice set. Thank you. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. And thank you for joining. Hammerette, a new manager bounce would really improve momentum with the squad, but who is even left out the scraps? What about, I talked earlier about Nolan. How many people would want maybe Kevin Nolan to take over for the rest of the season? Would that be a good thing? If Sullivan doesn't want to go out and get a manager that is going to have to put on a 3 or 4 year or long-term contract, would Nolan be the right man? Would he be a good solution between now and the end of the season? Gary, it would be nice to win some silverware in Europe. It's been a long time since 80 and Trevor's headed goal, hasn't it just? Evo Goose, heard a lot of people fantasizing. What are we fantasizing about, Evo? Enlighten me. Ralph, Hammer's chat mentioned about Hugh. I think we lose 200 million per season if we go down. It could be about that. I don't have the figures, but certainly it'll be a massive amount of money if we get relegated. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Hammer it. It's not like 95% of the squad will get dropped should they take the game into their own hands, regardless. It's a very good point. Good point. Ashley, fans need to start singing Skamaka's name if it's not on the pitch. I don't know what's going on there. I'm trying to find out what the story is there because I'm sure there's a story there. Lee, Evening Stell, do you think David Moyes will be sacked by West Ham if we lose to Villa on Sunday? Yes, mate. I said this earlier on. I do. I think if we lose against Villa on Sunday, there is no way back because, as I said earlier in the show, he's lost the away fans. And when you lose the away fans, that's curtains. That really is the start of the end. I also talked about, it looks like he's fallen out with Nolan, or certainly there was a disagreement. Declan walked away after being given instructions, shaking his head, etc. Something not quite right there, is there? And I think if we do lose on Sunday, that's probably the last straw. Dan. Moyes doesn't know how to handle our attacking players. His track record is shocking. I agree with that. James, don't know which channel that parachute payment came from, but I think I can think of a few. Yeah, it's pointless. Parachute payment will not cover the losses. You look into it and trust me, because I can't remember what the percentage is, but I don't know. I think it's 70 mil or something the first season, then it goes down to around 40 and then another 30 or whatever, something like that. So overall, you get a parachute payment of 100-ish mil, something like that. It won't cover. We sell Declan for 35, 40 million. There, you've lost 70 mil straight away. You sell Paqueta for 25 million because, and there's another 25 million gone off his price tag. Scamacca, we bought 30 million. You sell him for 15 million back to an Italian team. There's your money gone straight away before you even start thinking about anything else. Amit, good evening to you. I will take Christopher Nolan. At least he would make a good movie out of the team. Okay. Anthony, Sean said on Claret and Booze that the only thing that will make them get rid of Moyes is to protest like at the Burnley game before. Now, someone said in a comment after my video on the way back from Brighton, said, pitch invasion. I don't advocate that at all. I was there for the game against Burnley when we had a pitch invasion. It wasn't pleasant. It was quite toxic. And also, we're on a warning as well. We could get a massive fine. We could be docked points if there was anything like that. So protests, maybe, but do it in the right way. Hammers United do it in the right way. They do it away from the ground, and when it's time for the game to be played, then they go in and support the team. And maybe something like that, I don't know. Will that work? I really don't know. But hopefully no protests during the game. That would be the worst thing to do. Thank you, Old School. Much appreciated, Paul. I certainly will. Armour, is the decline due to Stuart Pearce? Everyone keeps asking this, but as I keep repeating, Stuart Pearce, the decline started before Pearce left, but maybe the decline started when Alan Irvine left. So it could be more about Irvine than anything else. Evo. 2 up front, long ball, route 1, needs must, shit or bust time. It's ugly football, can't get much uglier. You know what? I agree with that. Go route 1. Go route 1 and see what happens. Just get that ball up there, have 2 up front. That's when Antonio comes into play. You want to do that and have Antonio knocking it down to someone like Ings or Scamacca, then let's do that. But otherwise, no point doing it otherwise. Lee, thank you, mate. I agree. I agree with you. I appreciate what you said. Gary, is Benitez the right choice? No. I personally, I don't think he is. I think it would be more of the same. He might give us that little bit of a boost, but I don't know. Long term, I'm not so sure. E. Davis. Why would they spend 170 million if they wanted us relegated? See, it doesn't make sense. So when people talk about that and say, oh, yeah, the board want to get relegated, etc., it makes zero sense because that value of players, 170 million, will halve almost straight away. Chris, I think the parachute payments are being reduced. Even worse if that's the case. So even worse. Ben, owners are not progressive. Would a top 6 club have kept Moyes around? Probably not. No, definitely not. Things won't change unless owners disappear. The top clubs always evolve. We don't. Yeah, but they're around for a while longer, to be honest with you. Happy Hammerit. Most baffling signing in summer was Skamaka. Moyes got rid of Hilaire for not suiting a lone striker role, then waits 2 years to get a similar player. And that is weird. Anthony, I have to laugh at fans who say Moyes will be sacked. Sullivan is staying with Moyes. This Moyes wants to be sacked is getting a bit old in the two change subject. Yeah, I agree, because a lot of people have been saying it from almost the beginning of the season. Sack Moyes, sack Moyes. Sullivan wants to keep him. It looks like the only way is come Sunday. If we lose, I think Sullivan's hand will be pushed. I think he might have to go for it then and get rid of Moyes. If we lose. If we win, Moyes gets a reprieve. David, a lot of teams say they played badly against Albion. Brighton makes a lot of teams look shit. You were shit, but Liverpool looked shit. Chelsea did. Man United, keep your heads up. Thank you for the kind words, mate. I bet we look more shit than the others, though. But they are a very good team. Brighton are a very, very well-drilled team, as I said earlier on. The way they're bit, the way they're owned, the way they're managed, the way the infrastructure. Fantastic. All credit to them. All credit to them. How far behind am I? Getting there. Nearly there. Amma. Okay, so the question is, why did these coaches leave? And now they look at how effective Moyes is. Well, the reasons that were given, both for Irvin and both for Stuart Pearce, is they didn't want to spend time, full time, in the club, doing the coaching, traveling, etc., etc. Irvin is still involved, but he's involved more in the scouting, in a part-time scouting way. Stuart Pearce said he didn't want to do it anymore. He didn't want to sort of come into training every day. He likes doing the punditry, etc. You've got to take them for their word. You've got to take them for what they said. Will they? Is that the truth? Only they know. Only Irvin and Stuart Pearce knows. But I think, Irvin said, I don't want to do the traveling. Don't want to be coming to London all the time, etc., etc. He's with us on a part-time basis, but on a scouting basis. And then Pearce, as you know, does talk sport and all that sort of stuff. Dan, managers only have a shelf life of 3 years unless they recycle and adapt with new ideas to keep it fresh. Moyes going Stella's is a surprise, as he could write his tactics down on a postage stamp. I agree. I know what you think, but guess who was in my ear on Saturday saying if only Antonio was on the pitch? Yes, the man who wears the wild shirts. Can you believe that? Antonio, we know what Antonio's like. He's, with the greatest of respect, not even a mid-table championship player anymore. Anthony, still ring Allardyce and ask him to come back. No. So desperate the fans may suffer it to stay up. Long ball in the ball. No. Amit, played the most ugly way, at least win the games. Moyes is putting molten irons in my veins. Gary in Oz. Anyone with half a brain would be better than Moyes till the end of the season. Christopher Gibbs. Moyes knows he's safe and has the arrogance about it. You see it in every interview. That is true. He looks worn out, but there's still that sort of like, I know I'm staying. You're right. I agree. Let's scroll down. Bees knees. Villa going to turn us into Southern fried chicken. Happy Emirate. Stella, are you saying that if we beat Larnaca first leg but lose to Villa, Moyes gets the sack? I literally cannot see it. I do see it. I think if we lose to Villa, I think it will probably be time for him to go. Amma, heads up, if Brighton scored 3 more, we would be as bad as Man United. There you go. Man United, we're even worse than us. Can you imagine that? That's it. I'm done. I'm out of steam. All right, one more. Dan, more chance of Stellan Anton. No, there ain't. Trust me, there really ain't. That's it. I'm done. Right. I'm off to Cyprus on Wednesday and I'm going to enjoy myself. And I will do videos while I'm out there. There's another video coming out about the Europa Conference that I put together. I need to update it with the latest bits of information, but that's coming out tomorrow. It's pre-recorded, but do look for that. Please do look for that. And because all about the teams that are left. Or most of the teams that are left. So it'll give you a bit of an insight into the Europa Conference, who we might be facing if we beat Larnaca and go through to the next round. So look out for that. I'll be in Cyprus. I'll be doing a few videos when I'm out there. I'll try and do a few videos from the stadium if I can. Certainly do a review afterwards. And if I find a whole load of drunk fans, I'll do a preview as well and all that sort of stuff. So look out for all of that. Really much appreciated. Thank you for all the comments. Keeps me on my toes. And Hammerette, welcome back. I hope we have you back a bit more often. So have a great week, everyone. Come on. You know, Europa Conference, take away the doom and gloom of the Premier League and then back into Premier League action at the weekend. Have a good week. See you all very soon. And come on, you irons, I guess.